This is Jake Pazicki with an ACT Science conflicting viewpoints question. Now, this question is asking us it's about these four answer choices and asking us which one of these four answer choices is the most accurate summary of researcher one's viewpoint. When you get this kind of question, I usually go through the answer choices and see which one makes sense or doesn't make sense based on what I read in the passage, especially because you don't really, sometimes they're very specific and you don't know exactly what they're talking about. So in this case, we'll read answer choice 1. An animal's selection of an uncertainty response indicates that it is capable of metacognitive processes. All right, and I see if I'm looking through all the other answer choices, I see that these answer choices are all actually just about this paragraph 3 here. They're about the correct responses or uncertainty responses or incorrect responses, which is all in this third paragraph. So let's read this third paragraph. And we see that in recent studies, monkeys and dolphins were asked to complete tasks where correct responses were awarded and incorrect responses were treated with a light punishment. In these studies, a third option was introduced known as an uncertainty response, which animals were allowed to pass on to the next challenge without reward or punishment. So without reward or punishment. The animals in these trials responded strongly when confident about their responses and used the uncertainty response when they appeared less confident in their answer choice. This shows that these animals were aware of the strength of their own beliefs. So we're aware of the strength of their own beliefs and opinions, something only possible in animals with metacognitive processes. So something only possible in animals with metacognitive processes. Okay. So now we have a decent understanding of correct response, incorrect response, and uncertainty response, and how that all plays into this experiment. So let's read the answer choices here. The animal selection of uncertainty response indicates that it is capable of metacognitive processes. The answer choice seems to be supported because when they picked the uncertainty response, it showed that they were aware of the strength of their own beliefs here. So that could be a right answer. We'll give that one a little check mark. An animal selection of correct response indicates that it's capable of metacognitive processes. This one seems like this one's a little tricky. It could be right because whenever they picked the correct response, they would respond strongly whenever they were confident about their response. So that could be true. I'm not sure. We'll have to figure out in between these two later if these are if the last ones we're left with. Answer choice C. Animal selection of an incorrect response indicates that it is not capable of metacognitive processes. It doesn't actually talk about the way that incorrect responses reflected on metacognition, and actually shows that later it says in the trials where there was an uncertainty response and a correct response, they didn't even use the incorrect response. So we're going to go without that one. An animal's inability to choose a response indicates that it is not capable of metacognitive processes. Well, we know that this researcher does believe that animals are capable, and also it doesn't say anything about animals not choosing. So we're in between these two answer choices, which both seemingly could be correct. So we have to this is where in this kind of question you really have to dig into. You really have to understand the context of the experiment they're framing or the context of the study the theory they're proposing to understand which answer choice is right. So digging back into this, we see that there was one experiment where they had correct responses and incorrect responses. And then there's a second experiment where an uncertainty response was added. And the animals, so this is where the researcher talks about how the uncertainty response showed that they were less confident, which showed that they were aware of their own beliefs. So it was this uncertainty response that allowed animals to indicate that the strength of their own beliefs. So the uncertainty response is actually going to be the correct answer here, and we can see that just because this was the new variable they added in that allowed animals to show the strength of their beliefs. And which is indicative of a metacognitive process. If you aren't sure what metacognition is, you can just read it right here in the intro. If you're ever not sure what a word means, they usually define it for you in the introduction or somewhere in the passage. But yeah, so this is a distractor answer choice B. The right answer here is answer choice A, because the correct response was in both experiments, even whenever they weren't. It wasn't there, even the first experiment, which didn't directly show metacognitive abilities in animals.